have told you a lot about leprosy over my 1Nsight, and Jane, I know that you haven't heard so many, so that's all right. And I'm going to tell you a little bit more about leprosy today, but if you could all grab just a small piece of paper and a pen, just to scribble a few things down. You don't need to write a lot, but I'm going to start with a small little quiz, almost to test your knowledge on leprosy. It's just a little bit of fun, don't worry too much. And then I'm going to talk a little bit more about the timeline of leprosy. So I did a little bit of research, a little bit more into leprosy in the UK and where it came from and that sort of thing. And then I'll show you a short video as well. So, oh, I thought they were going to come up one by one, but never mind. Here is 8 questions. And I just want you to quickly scribble down what you think the answers are, and then we'll go through them. So number 1 is, what is another name for leprosy? I don't know if I've told you this, so you might have to use your outside knowledge. Number 2 is, what year was the cure for leprosy rolled out? I have told you that one, but try to the nearest year. Number 3 is leprosy a bacterial, a viral, or a fungal infection? So that's almost like a multi-choice for you. And again, I think you should be able to get that one. Number 4, what's the first signs of leprosy? You can just a vague answer for that one. Number 5, which other disease does leprosy share similarities with? I might have to move this box, I don't know if that makes a difference for you guys. But number 6, around the world, how many cases of leprosy are diagnosed a year? That's just a little bit more of a general figure. And number 7, which country has the most new cases of leprosy diagnosed each year? And number 8 is another multi-choice. Which part of the body does leprosy usually affect? A, the nerves and the skin, B, the teeth and the hair, and C, the brain. So I'll give you another 30 seconds just in case I've read that too fast, just to have a go at that. Fab. Shall we go through the answers? So number 1 was Hans disease is another name for leprosy. So if you just tick whether you've got it, and we'll share it, see how many we got right and wrong. Number 2 was 1982. So I don't know if anybody got that one, or close to it. If you got about 1980, then that's great. Number 3 was bacterial. So bacterial infection. Number 4 is patches on the skin with loss of feeling. So you don't have to have all of those words, obviously, but discoloured patches on the skin is usually the first sign of leprosy. It shares a lot of similarities with tuberculosis. That's the other disease. Number 6, 200,000 new cases a year. And that's where the 1 person every 2 minutes comes from. Number 7, India has the most amount of cases, and number 8 is the nerves and the skin. So I'm going to stop sharing for a second just so I can see you all again. How did we all do? I went through that quite quickly, but it was only just a little bit of fun and a little bit of a test. 4, 2, 3, 5. Well done, Lee. 4. Well done. So I think Lee might be the winner with 5.
4 as well.
4. Yeah, it's quite difficult, some of those questions, but a good little recap of leprosy. So well done, Lee. I think you got the most out of everybody there. So I'm going to go back to sharing my screen again. Here we go. So next slide. So I wanted to talk a little bit about leprosy in the UK and the history of leprosy. So leprosy is one of the world's oldest diseases. It's been around for many years. We see it back in the Bible. And actually leprosy was first reported in the UK back in the 4th century. And it spread across the UK and became an endemic in the 11th century, so about 1050. And at this time, there was no cure for leprosy. So the consequences of leprosy, the impacts of leprosy were really visible in many communities. People had clawed hands, it would affect your eyes, people's toes as well. It'd be really visible that people had leprosy because there was no way of treating it or controlling the disease, and as a result, people with leprosy were cared for in separate hospitals or chapels on the edge of town. They were isolated from their communities, they were pushed away, and this was in the fear of contagion, of catching the disease, and actually they were treated quite inhumanely. People thought that leprosy was a curse, leprosy was something that needed to be pushed out of society. And today there's many examples of these leprosy chapels or leprosy hospitals that still stand around the UK today. That picture there is one just on the outskirts of Cambridge, called St Mary Magdalene, and people still they use it as a church now, and people still worship in that on a Sunday morning sometimes, not every Sunday, but I think they do it once a month in that small leprosy chapel. And there's some other examples in Kent and Norfolk and Greater London, but we still see those buildings remain today, and these are often on the outskirts, and they were often called chapels because people affected by leprosy were sent there, and there was no hope for them. There was no cure. There was no way to treat it. So there was kind of a spiritual side to it, that they wanted just to be looked after and cared for spiritually because there was no hope physically, and their disease was only going to get worse and worse and worse, and it was going to disable them even more. And actually leprosy, so it's about the 14th century that it kind of started to slowly decline. So between the 11th century and the 14th century. So it's around in the UK for a long time. And nobody really knows exactly why it declined. There's two reasons. One, that increased sanitation and hygiene and better people's immune system. They built up a bit of immunity to leprosy as the country began to develop, and we had clean water and things like this. That was one of the reasons. And another one of the reasons is actually there was a spread of tuberculosis, and as I said, leprosy and tuberculosis share a lot of similarities. So tuberculosis became an endemic, and it's thought that perhaps people developed some immunity as that happened with the similarities between leprosy and TB. And now today in the UK, there's less than 10 cases diagnosed of leprosy, and this is from people who have contracted it elsewhere but happen to be diagnosed in the UK. So the cure came about in 1982, as I said in the little quiz, and this was a multi-drug therapy, which the WHO, so the World Health Organization, provide this cure for leprosy, these antibiotics free to all leprosy patients across the world. And they estimate that more than 16 million people have been treated with MDT over the past 40 years, which is crazy. An awful lot of people, and this is the antibiotic cure that goes from 6 to 12 months you have it for, and then you're cured from leprosy. And actually, there's been some new developments more recently, which suggest that rifampicin, which is one of the drugs in the multi-drug therapy, can be used as a preventative, as a post-exposure prophylactic. I can never ever say that word. That's a prophylactic. That's the one. Which is used if people in families or communities are diagnosed with leprosy. So there's lots of new developments. And then leprosy today, there's a goal to end leprosy by 2035, which has been set by the WHO, and it's been one of the longest infectious diseases known to man. But today it still impacts 200,000 people across Africa, Asia, and South America, with India being the largest of these countries to have the most amount of cases. And there's this goal to end leprosy, but actually there's also this statistic on the screen that shows that it's estimated that cases actually could be 17 times higher than those reported officially, which is quite scary, that there's a lot of people undiagnosed with leprosy. and what's being reported versus what there is kind of don't match up. So ultimately, the cure is really, really important. As with every disease, the sooner you diagnose it, you give the cure to people, and then it can prevent them from having these disabling diseases. I don't know, how many minutes have I got left?
You've got a couple of minutes left. If you've got something to add or open the floor for some questions.
Well, we can either open the floor for some questions, or I have a 2-minute YouTube video to share, whichever. I don't know if anyone has any questions, and I don't know if I have 2 minutes.
Let's play the vid.
Let's play the video. Okie dokie. So let me find it. This is a short video just to show a young girl who received the cure for leprosy. She's only 5 years old, but because she received the cure for leprosy, she doesn't have the disabling diseases. So this is why the cure is so important. So hopefully, if you can't hear it, then someone shout at me.
আমার নাম অঞ্জলি বারাইক 2003 সাথে পড়ি খেলাধুলা করি ভাইয়ের সাথে খেলি ঘুরি আমি খেলার সময় রান্না করি ভাতটা খাই
মনে হলো যে রোগটা ধরে ভালাই হয়েছে, যে আমার মেয়েটা চিকিৎসা পাচ্ছে, ওষুধ পাচ্ছে, এই রোগটা যদি জলদি তাড়াতাড়ি খুব ভালো হলে আমাদের লাগে খুব ভালো হবে। পা পড়ে যেতে পারতো, নখ থাকতো না, কত খারাপ লাগতো। আমার মেয়েটা এত সুন্দর মেয়ে, অনেক ক্ষতি হতো। তো আমার মেয়েটার হাতটা উলঙ্গায় হয়ে যাইতে পারতো, এখন তো আর এটা হবে না।
আমার ছবি আঁকতে ভালো লাগে। স্কুল শেষে আমরা বন্ধুরা নিয়ে খেলা করি। আমি সবচেয়ে বেশি তাড়াতাড়ি দৌড়ি। তাই আমি ডাক্তার হতে চাই, মানুষের সেবা করি।
So I will stop it there, but how cute is that little young girl? And it shows how if the cure is given, it can prevent disabilities and give a normal future and a normal life for these young children. But there you go, there's a short little lesson on leprosy. So you're now all clued up on leprosy and some of the history of that.